Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for the third edition of COPING-19, a conversation with Brazilian retail leaders, powered by Heyday. My name is Etienne Merino. I'm the co-founder and CMO of Heyday.ai. We're a conversational commerce platform for retail brands. And for this week's edition, we're pretty excited because we've assembled really a star-studded panel with experts from the sporting goods and sportswear industry. As you know, the coronavirus crisis has created new challenges, but also new opportunities for the space. And that's what we're here to talk about. We want to see how these leaders from a variety of different backgrounds, how they adapted their sales, marketing, customer experience, and leadership playbooks to face this crisis. So without further ado, I just want to introduce our speakers. We're pleased to have this select group. We got Olympic champion, entrepreneur, and speaker Bruni Surin, who's also the owner of the eponymous fitness brand Surin Clothing, which is sold in Canada. So welcome, Bruni. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
We also have Camille Ract, who's joining us from another time zone. Literally, she's from in Singapore. So she's the head of customer engagement experience at Decathlon in Asia. Thanks, Camille, for joining us.
Thank you for having me too.
And last but not least, we're also pleased to welcome Yann Martin for the bilingual ones. So Yann is a leadership coach, wellness ambassador, and brand strategist, and he's the former CMO of Europe at Reebok. So he knows a thing or two about the sportswear industry. Let's put it that way. Guys, well, welcome to our virtual stage. And I think, that's kind of like my little ritual here, but I think you deserve a virtual round of applause. So I prepared this little sound effects. So welcome you.
Should I do like this, like I won a race or something? Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you won those races, Bruni. So, and by the way, for our live audience, please submit your questions during our chat, and we'll save some time at the end to answer the live Q&A and ask these questions to our panelists. So, and by the way, this conversation will be recorded, so watch out what you're saying to be shared to all the other people who sign up to our basically to get the recording after the talk. So let's jump right in. I'll just stop sharing my screen right here. Where did I do that? Oh, there's a little glitch. All right. Sorry, folks. Disable screen sharing. Here you go. So I see your pretty faces. So let's go. So Camille, I'll start with you, obviously, and Bruni too. I mean, you guys, Decathlon as stores, well, worldwide, right? And Bruni, you're selling also your clothing line via retail stores. I'm curious to see, because obviously, like, this is a kind of once in a lifetime moment. Curious to see, what was your immediate reaction when everything shut down, and then what was your first action once you've gathered your thoughts?
Okay, maybe I'll start first. So
yes, go for it, Camille.
In April, and suddenly the government announced that 1 week before all the stores are going to close. So immediately our reaction was, okay, we are going to be 100% online shopping. So it means we need to be ready customer service wise. So how do we adapt? So the immediate reaction, of course, was a bit like fear. And suddenly in less than 24 hours, we reacted very fast because we onboarded a full new team. So basically all the teammates working in the stores, we onboarded like 50 of them joining our customer service team because we already could feel the surge in interaction. So that was our immediate reaction actually when it happened in April. Yeah.
Wow, and Bruni, obviously you have a different angle and perspective because you're selling your brand through retail stores, but you don't own these stores. So I'm curious, like when you wake up, in Canada, it was more like on March 12th, I think.
Yeah.
What was your reaction?
Of course, I mean, like a lot of people. I mean, at first, I mean, I got a reaction, kind of panic, like what's gonna happen because I have the clothing in the store, and all my speaking engagement were postponed, and some of them, actually 2 of them were canceled. Where I had already 15 speaking engagement. But if I talk about the clothing, for me it's a kind of a weird situation because I was going through a transition because now I'm exploring to be in other retail store because for the last 10 years I had an exclusivity with Aubainerie, which I was in 55 stores. But now recently they didn't required me to be exclusive with them. And now I was going to some transition, and also I'm exploring now to have clothing more like green. And now in that situation, I have my last, I could say, collection at Aubainerie. And now I was going to start in October to be in another retail store, which now because of the COVID, which will be postponed to 2021. But at the same time, my mindset is like, yes, it's a tough situation, but I'm preparing mentally to say that after the COVID, we are going to be stronger. And at the same time, with my team, we have more time to prepare to attack after the COVID. It reminds me the same thing like when I was an athlete. I mean, sometimes we have setback. Let's say I remember specifically at one time I was preparing for the Olympics, and maybe 2 months before the Olympics, I got injured. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, at first you're like, okay, this is the end of the world and everything. But my mindset always, and what I learned also is like, what are you going to do? What's the other option that you can do to be better after that? Well, of course, that I have my physiotherapy, I have my chiro, my team doctor were there for my training. Now I was training in the pool. Doing my technique, and at the same time working on my cardio. And matter of fact, 2 months after that, I was one of the top in the world at the sprinting. And that's the same mindset that I have now for the clothing and my speaking engagement. We're going to be stronger.
That's really an interesting spin. So the Olympian mindset is basically like, do your best, even if you're dealt a bad hand. And I'm curious, yep, Jan, because you're obviously coaching. I mean, you spent more than a decade in the sportswear industry now, more as a leadership coach. I'm sure you're still in touch with, some of your former colleagues and other leaders. What's the pulse there, like, based on your interactions?
Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for everyone to be there. I mean, I think it's definitely an interesting time. If you look at it from a leadership standpoint, or people in leadership position, I should say, manage people. I think what we see during times of stress and pressure, there's the one that rise above, and then there are people that actually are brought down by that stress. And by the way, we see it around the world right now with leaders of this world, So I think there's the first thing that the first discussion we have when we talk to people is this notion of, self-care. I think to be a people is able to lead people through crisis, you need to be able to lead yourself and take care of yourself. And so the word self-care, which is how do you remain sane mentally? How do you remain sane physically? How do you sleep well? How do you eat well? I think is the starting point of everything, right? So, and I say self-care, I don't mean self-centered. That's very different. So it's not about putting yourself first in terms of within the environment of a professional environment or the team. It's putting yourself first in terms of well-being. Because after that, a lot like Camille and Bruni talked about, you got to be able to react quickly. So it's about constantly clarifying and prioritizing things. And I say constantly, it's on a daily basis. Sometimes you make plans that are 3-week plans or monthly plans or quarterly plans. That's when it's business as usual. What we see right now is there's this need for constantly adapting, constantly switching priorities, constantly clarifying priorities to the team. And I would say the other one is just the number one quality I kind of see right now in leaders who are kind of emerging and be able to adapt their teams and to lead is listening. It sounds weird because sometimes you say, no, like it's about telling people what to do. But right now it's about listening. I think it's this notion of make sure you understand before you're understood is key. So listening to your teams, listening to your customers, trying to understand to then being able to clarify and adapt quickly. But the centerpiece is how do you position yourself in order to be able to react? So this notion of self-care, and Bruni I'm sure you can relate to that. As an Olympian, all the little things you do, it's all the little things you do around the track that makes you perform on track.
Yeah,
It's
you're
not
right.
just what you do on track. It's the same thing from a leadership standpoint.
That's really interesting, Yann. And you talked about the notions of adapting, but what I really love is listening as well, right? Which is not something brands are used to do. Like we tend to talk, brands, marketers tend to talk more than to listen. And that's something I know, Camille, it's part of the DNA at Decathlon, right? Really connecting with customers on a personal level. And with full disclosure, Camille is one of our clients at Heyday, so that's something we're involved with. But I love this aspect, and listening. I'd be curious to see more on the data side. Because I know more and more customers, if I look at our client pool in general, we've seen an increase of 300% of customer service requests and questions. So that idea of listening, but also proactively engaging customers is very important. And I'd be curious to see how does that translate during the crisis for you guys at Decathlon.
Sure. So yeah, indeed, we faced a surge in contacts. It was really crazy. So the first week, from 2,500 on average weekly basis contact, we faced 12,000 contacts. So it was really, really massive. And then for 2 months and a half, we were on average at 7,000 contacts. So indeed, we had no choice but to listen to our customer. And so for 3 reasons, this has increased. So the first was really, we are the only point of contact. So of course, they had no other option. They couldn't go to the store anymore. So they could only reach us through the customer service team. Then we also had the surge in e-commerce orders. And so our team in e-commerce also had to adapt. So for sure, we had some issue with the orders, late orders, missing item, and so on. So of course, this added on the question we received. And additionally, we also push our customer to contact us. We wanted to hear from them. We were missing engaging with them for like technical sports question and so on. So this, of course, we did this on the second phase, not immediately when the crisis kicked off. So after like 1 month, we sent an email to our entire database, our members, to say, hey guys, we miss chatting with you. Do you have a question regarding your sport practice, regarding a technical product, and so on? We are here. All our sport experts are there to advise for 60 sports. So please chat with us. So we wanted really to keep this connection with the customer, even though our store were closed.
And I guess the second, the natural follow-up question to this is, once you've opened up the floodgates, obviously, like it puts a lot of pressure on your internal teams, right, to manage the flow. So what are the tools and strategies like you put in place to be able to handle like the mounting demand?
Yeah. So indeed, in terms of tools, we haven't really changed our tools. So we were already ready actually to face such a surge in contact. So of course we have Heyday for the chat and for the call. Luckily we had a cloud solution. So our team was able to work from home and assist customers. So we had a call team of more than 25 teammates. For the chat, actually it was 40 teammates. So the tools were the same, but in terms of organization, it was totally different, of course. So we managed to onboard the entire teammate from the store. I mean, not all of them, but many, many of them. And we trained them. And basically now we still have this structure. We are still organized by channel, while it was not the case before the crisis. Before the crisis, I was overseeing the team and we were 7 people. And some days they were doing chat, the afternoon they were doing email, and the next day call. So now we have 1 leader per channel. So this is totally new. It's something we implemented during this crisis. And it's working well. So they are really in charge of their own channel to develop it. So we have a chat leader, email leader, etc. And additionally, to adapt to this surge in contact, what we put in place is to be really omnichannel. So now our team is really embracing this omnichannel mindset. We are really going far in a way like we no longer have a dedicated customer service team. We only have a leader. So only have a leader per channel. And the one replying to the chat, the one replying to the email, are our teammates in the store. So every month we change. So for chat, we have 8 people, so divided within 2 stores. And for example, this month we have 2 stores. The next month it will be 2 different stores. For email, etc., is 3 people. The next month, it will be another store in charge. So it means we have to have a relay per store. So of course, now the efficiency is a bit affected because we have so many different people replying to the customer. We need to ensure everybody is aligned on the guidelines, what to reply. But overall, so far, it's been a month only since the store opened, so it's a month now. So far, it's working well. And we'll see in 6 months whether we continue with this organization, whether it's successful or whether we change something new.
Very interesting to see how you guys really not only pivoted in terms of strategies, but also in terms of org chart to be able to support those strategies, which is really key. And Bruni, I mean, I'd like to see a different angle because obviously Decathlon has a strong, e-commerce, but also in-store strategy. In your case, because a lot of retailers, and I'm sure people in our audience have a similar context, in some cases, you sell exclusively, as you mentioned earlier, with the retail store chain in Canada called Aubainerie. With the crisis, is it something like a direct-to-consumer, for example, more of an e-commerce play? Is that something that's in a strategy that's emerging for you guys because you want to be less dependent on the physical store?
Yes, matter of fact, it's been a couple of years that I planned to be more present, like online on digital, because I saw that that's where we are going. I mean, we are even a little bit late if we compare to US, even in Europe. That's something that I foresee long time ago. But as we said, I'm not the owner of the store, and I had an exclusivity, so I was kind of limited and sometimes a little bit frustrated because I saw it coming. But now at the timing, this is where we are and really planning. And I could tell you, yes, for sure, in the future I will be more present online. But that's something that I saw way back. And matter of fact, during the COVID, which we still are in the bad situation, I was saying to myself, how can I improve and how can I better my businesses? And actually, I took 2 university classes, and one of them was digital marketing, because I want to have more knowledge on that. And I could say that once we'll be ready, watch out, we're gonna be strong. But yes, that's something that I wanted to do very long time ago. Yeah.
That's something we're seeing across the board, right? Like an acceleration of the digital transformation, both for small businesses, but also global brands. And I mean, speaking of which, Yan, you're obviously very knowledgeable about the sportswear and sporting goods industry, but nowadays you're also into angel investing, leadership coaching, as I mentioned earlier, both for tech startups, but I guess also for retail brands. And I'd be curious to see, because we talked about the digital transformation that's being accelerated. What's happening is really kind of we're seeing new movements in the market where, for example, Lululemon last month announced a big acquisition. They bought hardware company Mirror, a smart mirror and fitness startup, for a whopping $500 million, billion with a B. Do you think more and more sports brands and retailers will get into the tech acquisition game and into the tech space to help bridge that gap between the physical and digital world? Is that something you're seeing as an enduring trend?
Well, I mean, I think it's not only in the sporting goods world. I think it's just it's the behavioral pattern that it's the route we're going down to. So digital is part of everyone's life more than ever. So the integration, between physical and digital is going to become more and more seamless. So by nature, if you want your brand to be connected emotionally with consumers, you're going to have to be with them where they are and go from acquaintance to friend, and to do that, you need frequency. And to get frequency, the best way to do it right now is through digital, call them digital channels, call them digital tools, whatever you want to call it. So the answer is yes, you're going to see more and more of that. I would say the challenge for brands is going to be how they decide to do it, how they build relationships that are going to be lasting. So, Kemi talked about what they did at Decathlon. I think they remained true to who they were as a brand and how they wanted to do and interact with their customers. And I think for me, that's fundamental. One of the things we talked about, I think Etienne at one point, was that kind of the human touch behind. Obviously, there's AI and everything. So how do you keep the human touch? And that for me is it really comes down to the people that are behind the company and behind call them the devices or the proposition, to make sure that their values are felt through the experience. Talk about authenticity, we talked about being true to who you really are, we talked about empathy, we talked being supportive as brands out there. These are all things you need as a company, but they're human traits. So that's where the balance is going to happen. That's where it's going to be interesting to see is how can when you go into a physical store, you have a physical experience with the people that are there, which usually are in line with the brand's value, and the product, and then there's the music and everything. So you get that feeling. You don't get that obviously online. So how do you convey those same values and remain true to yourself is really what brands are going to be up against.
And Camille, I'd love to hear you out on this, because obviously, Yan touched upon a few really key points here. Decathlon, in your DNA, your stores are obviously very experiential by design. You can actually discover and try new sports on premise. Now it's not as possible. I don't know. Maybe here we go. I don't know who's there's a little bit of feedback noise. So I'm trying to figure out who's yeah. So I'm gonna unmute you after. So by design, yes, your stores are very experiential, and with this crisis, the next logical question is how is that going to impact how you rethink the store? It has become more of a point of curbside pickup, more of a tactical point and experiential. So how do you envision? I mean, as the stores are reopening, you're in Asia, you have a bit of a feel of what's coming up for us across the ocean, the other end of the world. Any insights you can share with us in that regard?
So indeed, in Singapore, actually, we have, for example, a different model of store. So we have two concepts. So we have, of course, our experience store. So really where you can try, where you can touch. We have 5, but we also have click and collect. So we had actually the first click and collect Decathlon in the world. So we were the first country to launch this concept. So we are very proud. So back in 2018, so now we have 8. Okay, so the last one is opening actually next week. So 8 click and collect store, and it's a small boutique where you have a selection of curated sports products, and you can order online and you can collect within 2 hours. 2 hours you can collect your purchase, and this we are super proud of it, and we really want to continue to develop this. The ambition is to have 1 click and collect store within 15 minutes of each Singapore citizen. We really want convenience. We really want to once again make sport accessible to the many, and this concept on top of reducing the carbon footprint, because of course it's better to do a click and collect rather than a home delivery in terms of the environment. So we really want to push that, and we can see that luckily we launched this concept 2 years ago, because now since the store reopened, we can see a 30% increase in the orders done within click and collect. So several reasons, of course, the convenience also is very easy, and lastly, you can return very easily the product and exchange. So for online shopping, it's very seamless actually. And sorry.
Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
So for the experience store, of course, we will not close them. We really want to continue because it really makes sense for our customer to have the option between either order online or really going to the store and enjoy the experience, especially for investment product like stand-up paddle or even a bike to try out. So it really makes sense to really embrace the lifestyle, the Decathlon lifestyle, to meet with people. So we are also adapting our experience store. So of course you still can try the product, etc. But now the job of the experience store, of the teammate working in the experience store, is evolving. Now all those teammates are also doing e-commerce, meaning all our experience store, because of this crisis, and before it was only 2 experience stores doing e-commerce, now our 5 experience stores are doing e-commerce center. So they are shipping order from their store. And this is something that this crisis made possible, because we were not really ready, but now we had no choice to be ready for that. Yeah. So we are kind of reinventing the job of retail, even for experience store.
I love the way, like, that's a prime example of, obviously, like, I'm biased, but I'm a huge fan of Decathlon, because I find like they're a global brand, but acting like a startup, very nimble, very adaptive. And I think that's the name of the game for any retailer who wants to not only survive, but thrive with this new age, right? And I kind of like, one thing that you guys also put, a big emphasis on at Decathlon is the power of the team, right? Obviously, it's kind of like inherent to any great sports team, but also every great retail team. There needs to be a lot of cohesion and just a great team spirit to make all of this happen, all these initiatives happen on a global scale. So I'd like to bring in our champion, our athlete, Bruni. I know you've done a lot of speaking engagements in the last decade, right? Talking to different types of teams, executive teams, obviously, but trying to instill, this Olympian mindset into the teams. What are the, I'd say like the traits you've been, preaching for? What basically, we're talking a lot about resilience. So what makes a resilient team? And what are the tips and tricks you might give to a team that's now unfortunately working remote? So how do you recreate that team spirit while being remote? Oh, sorry, Virginia, I was muted. You're back on.
Mute. You unmute me.
You're back on. I'm sorry. My apologies.
It's okay. No, yes, I've been doing since the COVID, I've been doing maybe probably more or less maybe 15 conference via webinar, and I kept in contact with some of the executives. And one thing that I told them also is, yes, people are working remotely from home and everything, but you have to try to keep the team spirit together. Some people they were not used to that, and also we were talking about how you make sure that all the work has been done, since they're living with that hard situation. It is very tough, and I know that some of them, what they did, they had the webinar access almost like all day, like the employees, like, man, if they have a question, everything, you kind of try to get a sense that you are in the office, you are like your boss, or you are marketing responsible or available like all the time. But I think that a lot of them, that's the time we were talking earlier about listening, and I think that's a moment that we need to be very, very careful about the mental aspect also. Because yes, we are, some of them, like, especially when you ask a president of the company, yes, you are strong and everything, but you have to make sure that your team also follow up, and as a leader, you have to make sure that they are okay, almost on a daily basis. Because unfortunately, when we look at the stats, yes, there are more people affect psychologically, like depression and everything. I don't like to talk about like more deeper stuff like suicidal and everything, but the reality is that. So as a leader, like, it's the time to be like very, very, very strong, and it's a big responsibility. And as for myself, that's something that I did a lot. I did a lot of videos and free seminar, and to encourage people to try to have this mindset there, to say, okay, well, we're living that situation. Now you have your kids, example, like not going to school. Some of us have our income decreasing dramatically. And how do you stay focused? And I think that's very important. And as for myself, that's something that I did to help the situation. And that's something that I encourage everybody to do as well.
Yeah, it's also the human aspect of leadership, right? There's still, all the companies are fighting, not for the survival, but fighting to adapt at least, and staying human in the leadership approach is very important. And I'll kind of use it as a segue more on the brand side, because Jan, for those who don't know, Jan was basically one of the main architect of the Be More Human campaign at Reebok a few years ago, but it just feels so still contemporary, still resonates today, and still relevant with this crisis. I'd be curious, you talked about humanizing commerce earlier on, especially how do you do that in a digital first and remote economy? And I'd be curious to hear you out on this, and if you have additional like strategies, because obviously the digital world always feels kind of like halfway there. So how can brands connect on a more personal level while from a distance?
Yeah, I mean it's the $1 million question. No, but it is, but I think it's also quite simple. I think the number one thing brands need to do is be clear about who they are. Consumers connect with brands because they feel there's something beyond the product they want to connect with. A voice, a deeper purpose, an intention to do something good. So the first thing brands need to do if they want to connect with an audience on a really emotional basis is to be clear about who they are, what they want to do, and to stay true to that, right? And that's if I walk into, if we have an interaction, you and I, Etienne, at a restaurant, and we're having a nice dinner, and then the next evening you see me entering a party, acting completely different, you're going to question, was I myself with you, or like what's going on? So there's always going to be question and maybe debates from your standpoint. So brands need to be clear about who they are and they need to act accordingly. That you can't diverge from who you are because consumers see through that. So and after that, I just go back to what I said a little bit earlier. Authenticity, listening, adaptability with consumers. Listening is one thing, acting is another thing. And that's what we need to. When we worked at Reebok and Adidas, there was a whole notion we called open source. Which is about bringing the consumer into the equation of how you want to transform your brand or how you want to transform your brand's interaction. And I think we talked about the digital age and what it means for brand. It means that consumers are going to be a lot closer to the brand and are going to become a bigger influencer in where the brand is going to be moving forward. And that's just the nature of the beast. And brands have to embrace that. If you try to have a push strategy and just tell consumers what to do, you're going to end up running up against the wall. If you bring them into the equation and you're able to adapt based on what they give you, what they tell you, what they want, how they want it, where they want it, and you're able to show that you're listening and you want to make that proposition even better, then you're going to be winning, and that for me is what it means from a brand to be more human. Now, in the context of Reebok, our belief at the time was that fitness is a pathway for everyone to be better socially, mentally, from a community standpoint. We felt it was a special door that once you've entered, everything else becomes better. So everything we were doing at the time was through that lens, and from the way we set up our cafeteria, what we ate, the fitness propositions in-house, because it really starts with how you treat your employees also.
Yeah, this is great. And I think I just want to kind of go back to another earlier point you talked about self-care, right? Because being more human is also about self-care. And I know you're a big, fitness buff. And I'd be curious, Camille, to loop you in conversation because we've seen, at least with what I read online, it's not all gloom and doom for the sporting goods industry. If anything, it's much better to be in the sporting goods industry than the travel industry. These are US based numbers, but they seem to reflect global numbers pretty much. The industry overall saw a 28% increase in the US year over year in terms of sales. And obviously, the results are not all created equal. So some sports are over indexing, for example, social distancing friendly sports like biking, for example. I'd be curious, based on because you guys sell pretty much any sports related product, what are the products you've seen emerge as leaders in the new categories that you didn't expect for 2020 and that became really popular this year?
Yeah, so indeed, the beauty of Decathlon is we have so many sports, so we can kind of mitigate the risk. So the winning one are definitely the bike, because especially now the borders are closed. So the only place where you can travel is Singapore. So all the Singaporeans are getting a bike. So this is really the top sport, followed by fitness, whether it's a cardio, soft fitness, and hard fitness, whether Pilates, this kind of sport, bodybuilding. So we can really see a spike as well on this sport. The sports that are having a bit more trouble would be like hiking, because you cannot really travel. So backpack or ski, because actually ski in Singapore is usually popular. Now you can go skiing usually in Australia. So for sure, we are selling zero. So this is normally ski is really strong now, and so now it's definitely not possible. So yes, but however, we are still confident for the future, because we can see that Decathlon will still remain a loved brand, yes, so we are kind of adapting. For sure, some people, they will only buy only one bike, it's normal, but they will keep coming back for the accessories. So because the bike is a technical sport, so we really want them to come back to us and to purchase. Additionally, we are in a crisis, unemployment and so on. So Decathlon, we have a value for money product. So for sure, it becomes a kind of the first choice for people to shop with us. And lastly, because we cannot travel, Singapore is small, you spend time shopping. So for sure, so this is also a positive thing. And yeah, people love to come back to us. For now, we really see, since the store have reopened last month, a really big crowd coming. So it's very encouraging. Yeah.
And maybe a last question before we welcome questions maybe from the audience for a short Q&A. You're obviously in Singapore, in Asia. The crisis hit a bit earlier. You're also, as people can deduct with our accents, we're mostly francophones on this call. So you're also from France. From France. So you've been following the news in Asia, in France, in Europe, which were both hit before North America. So the store reopening process is a bit more mature, I would say. Any insights that you've seen that are different in these regions of the world versus North America that maybe you could inspire us to better manage the reopenings?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can inspire, but we can inspire. But for actually in Singapore, we were not really hit first. So the lockdown started after Europe because it only started in April. So we are a bit of shock because Singapore was like kind of really isolated, really fine. And suddenly it was crazy with the store closed for a month and a half. So what I can say so far, I'm not so sure. I mean, we are adapting. We are following the Ministry of Health regulation. We are not doing much. We are just really transforming our human organization at the moment. And I'm sure this in the future will be the key to success with this omnichannel organization. So in case a new crisis happen or second wave or whatever, we are kind of confident because now we built really a new organization. We are ready. Our e-commerce is stronger. Our customer service team is stronger. I don't know what else I can add on this question actually.
This is great, and well, I'll do a segue with the live Q&A. So we got a question from Bhavya Sharma. So one of the unique things about this crisis, I think it's directed more towards Kimi. One of the unique things about this crisis is that it's truly global, obviously, and we're all experiencing similar challenges, but at different times. How are you leveraging the data from the other country managers, other countries in the Decathlon world to basically better inform your decisions about next steps?
Yeah, actually a little bit, but not that much, because in Decathlon we are really organized by country. We really believe in the subsidiarity. So the one taking the decision are really the closest to the consequence of the decision. So this is something really true. But of course, we share best practice among countries. This is important. For example, because China was hit first, we also could adapt. We also could learn from them, especially in terms of production. So we could review a bit where do we produce to adapt. So this is what we are doing after. For example, this omnichannel organization, I have shared it internally to inspire our colleagues worldwide. Yeah.
Great. And well, we're almost at the end, so I'll do a last round to see with the audience. Is there any other question? Type it now, because otherwise we're going to wrap it up. So So we'll wait 5 seconds, not to have too much of an awkward silence. I don't see anyone typing. So, guys, I just want to thank you all for your time, whether it was early in the morning or late at night. It was great to have such a diversity of opinions. Leadership coach, Olympian champion, Camille in the trenches, head of customer experience, really having the finger on the pulse. So, thanks so much for all these insights, and hopefully, at least I enjoyed it. So I'm sure the audience really enjoyed these perspectives.
Hey, Etienne, just one thing I want to mention, because Bruni touched on something that I think is super important in terms of the mental health right now for everyone. And I think, we're talking about the sporting goods industry. The sporting goods industry right now can play a critical role in time in people's well-being, where historically the narrative has been a lot, just move so that you lose weight, or that you stay healthy. The role of the sporting goods industry right now, I believe, goes far beyond that. There's obviously it allows people to do something other than stay seated in their house, to move. It also allows people, once you activate the body, the mind becomes clearer. So the whole notion of mental health, fitness, and sporting goods, the sporting industry can help people stay sane mentally. And then the last one, I think the more and more we're going to see, we talked about, Camille talked about biking and all that. There's a human connection element that goes through sports and fitness. That's why there's a longing right now about professional sports going back. There's obviously a financial reality behind it, but ultimately people need, it's a people connector. It identifies people to something, right? Like, it's a need for us to feel like we have a sense of belonging. So I do think that the role of the sporting goods industry right now extends way beyond just getting people to move. And I think it's an opportunity, and we'll see who embraces it and then who really makes a difference in people's lives.
Thanks so much for adding this perspective. I mean, it's so true. We're all human beings first, and every time I work out, I realize I should just work out more. Feels so much better. So.
I think Bruni's. Oh, there you go.
Oh, Bruni, what did you say?
I said after the webinar we go train together.
I can't. I need to start maybe on my own before I'm going to be an embarrassment, Bruni. You're too sick for me.
No.
Thank you so much for your generosity and your time. It was really a delightful conversation, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. See you guys.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.